Hi everyone, it's me again. I'm just going to talk about painting this portrait, this spotlight effect. Now, there's two ways you can do this. I'm giving you a choice. You can use black paint and do it in one tone and have very, very high contrast with the white paper and the black paint. And that will give you a very, very graphic look. I'll try and give you an example of that when it comes to Thursday. I thought about that and kind of wanted to do that, but I think there's a lot of subtleties in the face, especially kind of around the cheek and things like that, a lot of greys, and I thought it would look too hard and not very attractive, so I decided instead to go with my more kind of traditional way, I suppose. So I'm going to give you another way of making black. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use phthalo green, and I'm going to use crimson. And really, with all the contrasting colours, if you mix them together enough, you will end up with a grey or a black or a brown. And over time you get to understand what does what. But crimson and green really make a very good grey. So I'm putting quite a lot of paint. You will need a lot of paint for this. We're not going to have any colours. We're just going to create one colour, and then we're going to create lots of shades with that colour. So I've got about the same amount of red and green, and I've got my nice round brushes, which I love, in various different sizes, and I'm going to take the small one so I don't lose all the paint in the bristles, and I'm going to mix the red into the green like this, and you can see quite quickly it makes a nice warm grey purpley colour. It's purpley because both of these colours have got blue in them. I want to make quite a lot because I want to make 3 shades of grey out of these 2 colours. So I'm not going to mix all of it, but I'm going to mix the majority of it. You decide when you stop mixing. Okay, so it gives me quite a rich dark colour, and this is like a warm black. It's no good if you're a black purist. Just going to move this, make sure you can see it. Okay, so I've got my grey, and then I'm going to take a large amount of white. As you remember, white is like gold, and at the moment my grey is opaque because I haven't got any white in it. I need to make it thicker with some white, so I'm going to put a small amount of white in to thicken it up. But even though it looks like it will at the beginning, it won't change the shade of the colour. Now you do need a lot of grey because this grey is going to be in the background as well as painted in the picture. If you want, like I say, to have a really graphic look, then use black, the same shade all over the background. You may be a bit more patchy. I'm not very good at making things the same colour. I'll get bored of it, so I tend to like patchy. Now you can see this is getting a bit on the green side, so I'm going to chuck some more red in just to warm it up. Remember, colour is like a seesaw. If you go too far one way, you just put in the opposite colour and balance it back up. Not enough red. And if the red becomes too overpowering, I can just put some more grey in, and that's fine. Just making a bit more because we will use quite a bit. Okay. And then add some white into there, quite a bit of white, and I'm only touching the side of the grey. I don't want to mix too much in. So really what I'm looking for is an off-white. So you can see the large amounts I'm using, and that's good. We need large amounts because if we want to paint over something, if we're creating layers, we're scumbling through anything like that, if we are trying to match the background with the foreground, all sorts of reasons. If we want to mix something in a shade in between, then we've got plenty of spare. So too much paint is never a problem. Right, that's my paint mixed. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to concentrate on this eye, and I'm going to paint that patch in, and then I'll show you how to do that patch, and then obviously I'll finish off the picture, and you can see the finished article. I may actually put bright white on top of this grey. Okay, so I think, yes, I am. So as you know, the golden rule is paint light to dark. So I'm going to start with some white. Now it sounds crazy putting white on white paper, but it's all about keeping your light areas clean. So I'm going to go in this cheek area here and put my white paint on, and also the paint is a different colour to the paper, so if you cheat and then add some white in later, you can tell, unfortunately. So this is quite smooth, same kind of painting technique as the circles, where we want all the brush strokes really to go in the same direction. We might get a bit blobbier later. Let's see how we go. So there's my white patch there, and I'm going to overlap it just a little bit because I'm going to put my grey in next, and I'm not sure yet. I might want to smudge them in or blend them or something like that. So this is my sort of greyer area here. Yeah, I'm going to blend the two in together like that. Now you'll notice I'm not using proper acrylic paper, I couldn't get any, so I'm having to go with more ordinary paper, which is why it's crinkling a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to put this shadow under the eye in here. Now because I've decided to go with this sort of gradual grey, and I've got another grey effect going in, I'm going to put my light underneath my dark. So I'm blending that in like that, and then I can go up a notch with my grey, trying to avoid my highlight, but it never happens. But that's okay, I can put my white in later. And then I can put my dark grey. Actually, I'm going to put some. This is kind of my mid grey here. So if you were doing this properly, what you would do is you do all your white areas first, and then you do all your next layer first. You know, you go do all your white layers, then you would do your kind of off-white layers, then you would do your mid-tone, and then you would do your dark tone. So it's quite orderly. Just blending that in like that. Because it's wet, I can kind of move it around a bit. then I can add dark area under the eye like that. Now this is my black, my darkest tone, like that. Now at the moment I'm sticking to my lines that I drew, but I may add more texture. Might make it more expressive. I just want to show you how you work from light to dark, like that. Now I'm not happy that I've gone under my eye highlight in dark, so I'm wondering if I can it's a bit too grey. So I did manage to pick some of it up, which is better because the paint is watery and dark, and then you put thick white over the top. The white will sit better, like that. I know that's smudged in a bit. I'm going to deal with that later. Let that dry, then put more white over the top. Okay, so I'm going to work a little bit into the nose and a little bit into the eye. So, I've got this bright highlight on the nostril here. That is white there, and I've got a bright highlight here, kind of a hollow in the nose, I suppose. Then you've got some pale grey coming up from the nostril like this and fanning across. See, you can be quite hard edge about this, like we were with Sonia Delaunay, and that's why I say you get a very graphic look. But if you want to be more brush work, then you can not stick to the lines so much, and you can blend the paint more. So I've gone upper grey here, like that, and you can start to blend it into the paler grey. So I'm going to get my paler grey, and you can then overlap the paler area like that. You may want to take that hard edge off that white there. Obviously it's curved, it's not strictly a circle. And then you can bring your white in and you can start to dab the highlights like that. If you think that grey is a little bit harsh, you can bring your white down like this. Just wiping extra paint off my brush. You can blend the two in together. So really you're pulling from both sides, pulling across this funny end part here, bring it round, and then you can re-emphasize the white in the middle like that. It looks a bit more natural. And bring it down. So yeah, it depends how hard edged you want to be, whether you want to soften it, whether you want to keep those hard edges, looking at pattern and shape, or whether you want it to be more natural. I'm just putting my darkest tone in here. So my brushes, I've got 3 brushes, all of different widths. I've just noticed that the bottom of the nostril is a bit more curved than that. So I'm going to take that shape. Oh, that looks more human already. Sometimes these things surprise you. And now I'm going to start thinking about the shadow under here. So yes, I've got a nice thick brush for big areas and for dolloping lots of paint on. And to be honest with you, if I was sort of painting this by myself with nobody watching, I probably would have started with big broad strokes with my whites and pale greys, and then got smaller, finer. But I kind of want to explain what I'm doing. So this is the next grey. I'm going to blend it into this paler grey. Pull that down. So you see the layering, and I'm layering when the paint is wet, and that means it will blend. It's like wet on wet with watercolour. It will blend with no edges, which is much more natural. If you notice, I'm keeping all my brush strokes on this sort of diagonal turn, and the reason why is the light is coming from up here, so the light is raking across the face from this direction. So I'm trying to keep the direction of the light with the direction of my brush strokes. So now I'm putting some darker paint in. Now it's not as dark as it could be because the paint underneath is still wet, but that's fine. I'm blending away, and then I can add my stronger contrast later. So I've wiped all the paint off my brush, and I'm then just dragging what I've got on my paper across the paler grey to get a little bit of a softer gradation of tone. I'm going to pop a little bit of paler grey here, like that. So yeah, you have to be a bit patient really. And then you end up with another line. You think, well, what to blend that line, and you've got to blend another line, and on it goes. Keeps you out of mischief. Yeah, with painting, probably the longest thing is the blending. Okay, I'm going to leave that because I'll play with it all day long. Okay, so now I'm going to get into the, oh, let's finish the nose off. So I'm going to take this dark grey, and I'm going to be cheeky, and I'm going to put this sort of nearly black, and I'm going to put this part of the nose in, just because I want it to make sense, like that. Just finish the end of her nose and get back to blending later. Okay, so we're looking at this eye, so similar thing really. So we've got our white dash in the middle. I'm just going to kind of definitely get that in, make that nice and firm, like that. And then I get my off-white grey, and then I'm going to bring this up into the shadow of under the eyebrow. I really recommend looking at tear ducts, because in this picture they do describe a lot about the position of the eye, and it gives you quite a lot of the drama. They almost look like cat's eyes in this picture. I'm just blending that edge. I'm going to bring my grey up and round. It's quite tricky because there isn't a lot of information, so we have to do it all in shadow, all in the different shades that we've got. So there's my, so I'm going to start by putting the largest area of my pale grey around here, all of this is black, save for my kind of white area in the eyebrow. Like that. And then using your grey underneath while it's still a little bit wet, you can then start to put your mid-tone grey on top. If you think your mid-tone isn't mid-tone enough, then just add some white to it. It doesn't matter if you've got more tones. It may be easier to have more tones on your palette than to blend them all. It's completely personal choice. I mean, this is getting very sort of personal. You know, you find out the way that you work by working, and you find the way that you prefer to do things. The more you do it, and it gets easier, and you think, oh well, that worked last time, so I'll use it this time. Putting a little bit of my mid-tone grey. Now with this lighting effect there isn't a lot of mid-tone. It's all about joining things up really, and like I say, there were some subtleties in the picture that I wanted to keep, so I'm going to keep the edges as the greys even though the majority of it is black. I've gone a bit over my white area, but I shall come back and I shall paint over it once it's dry. We don't like painting light on dark, but it can be done. Do not panic. Okay, so I'm putting my black over the mid-tone grey, my darkest grey I should say, sorry. Trying not to go over that line. Easier said than done. And then as you get towards the edge of that black area, you can then start to, I've just taken the paint off my brush with my rag, and then you can just feather it down into the paler greys like that. Again, another wipe. There we go, that's better. And then, as this is mostly black, you can then just add your black into the black areas. Very severe, very dramatic kind of look. And don't forget, this is where the shadow on the cheekbone and the shadow of the eye join. Like that. In a minute I'm going to have to look really carefully at the eye just to understand what's going on here. You don't understand and it's time to have a good look. And then you've got the very dark eyebrow coming across like that. And round that shape off again. Everything's very elegant, very glamorous in this picture. No sort of rough edges or anything, which is why I didn't want to do the hard black shapes. Would have looked a bit stark, I think, down here. Right then, so I'm going to move my iPad for a minute so I'm going to have a really good look at the eye, because it's very, very black. Okay, so I'm going to take my white and I'm going to do that highlight that's been bothering me the whole time. Upside down. A clear white, clear white line where the eyelid is, like that. I can put another layer in if I want to. Okay, so I'm going to take my black, because the pupil is completely black. And it's more the white of the eye and the eyelid, the bottom eyelid, that are describing what's going on with the eyes. So I'm going to turn my page round because I don't want to go over my highlight again. Like this. It's really black, inky pupil in. Now don't forget that the eyelids overlap the eye. So the top and the bottom of your eye, the coloured part of your eye, is not going to be round, because you've got eyelids that are going to fit around it. For some reason the paint didn't sit there, so I'm going to put that in again, like that. Now the great thing about acrylic is you can put more layers, more layers, more layers all the time. Okay, so I'll have another look at this eye. So the corner of the eye is really dark, looking at my photograph, looking back at my source picture. So I'm going to put a very dark central part of the corner of the eye in, like that. But the lids around it are pale, so I'm not going to touch them. I'm going to look at my eye. Yep, so now I need to make that paler. So I'm going to go straight to the pale grey, like this, and I'm going to blend it in there. Like that. So what I've done is I've put a blob of black and a blob of my palest off-white grey next to each other, and then I'm going to very carefully tease it out like that. And then I'm going to put some more of the pale grey next to pupil, like this, and I'm going to fan it back out to blend black in with the dark grey. To make the white of the eye, I'm going to turn it round so it's more comfortable for my hands, and I can actually get a better edge. That's good. So yeah, you blend it like that, so you can see the white of the eye starting to come. Now I want to have a look at the corner of the eye again. Yes, so we have a little bit of pale where the corner of the eye is. So yeah, this really is a lesson in drawing eyes. And then I'm going to blend that white so it fades into the grey, like that. Have another look. And then it becomes darker, and it blends into the black underneath the eyebrow. That's the sort of inside of the lid. Now because I have plenty of this colour, it's going to match the mid-tone I've got on my picture already. So I can do that. And then I've gone a little bit over, but that's fine, that's part of painting. You're always going a little bit over, always. You can then put that darker tone over the top and then blend it out like that. Now I still want to have a look at the bottom of the eye. around here, because that the bottom part of this lid here looks a bit on the wide side, so I think it's quite pale here. I'm going to make got my off-white grey here. And I can turn it into my mid-grey, or I can go straight into the black, it doesn't matter. And you can get those details in, and then you can start shaping. So that grey is good, but I think it's gone over a little bit, so I'm going to go over with a little bit of white like that and make it a bit cleaner. Obviously a bit of a splodge there. Let's blend that out. There we go, real splodge. Okay, so that's kind of the way we're going. So I'm going to keep going with that, and I'll show you how that finishes off. But yes, it's a really good way of looking at eyes. I mean, obviously I haven't done this part yet, but it's that level of detail, it's that middle level of looking, and that level of blending, and then you get this wonderful effect like the photograph here. Okay, I hope you enjoy, and I shall speak to you Thursday. Bye.